I'm sorry, y'all. We up here celebrating. I just was interrupted by something, y'all. Okay, I need to turn this down. This was a little too loud. How are you all doing today? To God be all the glory. I only came on the camera real quickly, y'all. Just real quickly. On the simple fact that, with the AI and everything else that we generate these graphics with, and also our photos when we do a little slight altercations or alterations or whatever you want to call it with our photos, we want to make sure that we identify that it is us. It is what it is. People out here doing all kind of crazy stuff with that AI. But anyway, and it also can bring problems in your life. Because my husband was very upset about the R. Kelly photo that I posted, and he did not like it. But I told him, I said, it could be very difficult, y'all, because I let him know that it was only because our birthdays are celebrated in the same month. It meant nothing, but to him it meant something, but I have to respect that. But anyway, other than that, I just told him I won't be doing it anymore. How about that? Let's settle it. I understand, we had to have that conversation because of some things we do seem to post on social media that there should be some level of respect and boundaries or whatever we have to do when we with our spouses or whatever. So we have to respect that. But anyway, I just wanted to come to you because I wanted to celebrate this week as the civil rights freedom fighters and all what Dr. Martin Luther King stood for, and also all the other crazy nonsense that's going on in our world that we're living in today. All the protests on this and all these different organizations that are starting to form. But we have to be very careful because these are your children. Your children. We are the elders. Okay? These are those of you who have children. These are your children, and these are your children's children. So, this is why I'm saying to bring you some awareness on to be careful on what things you will follow in this world that we're living in today. All the social ills, social injustice, how we have to make good conscious choices or decisions. Okay? We don't want to see anybody harmed. Don't want to see anybody hurt, so we have to take precautions. And everybody should take some kind of responsibility to their community to make sure that they are doing everything they can to keep their community safe before the storm. And this is what my talk is about because what's going on in Minnesota to me could have been avoided on all kind of levels on leadership. Okay? We're not going to use racism in this. We're not going to say because of racism. We're not going to blame the president of the United States of these Americas. Now, these people, when they became people that were supposed to serve in their civic duty and their work, and they work as leadership in their whatever communities they serve, like even in what body of government that they serve. Now, one thing is that um, Tim Walz should have taken some safety precautions for his state, knowing that the administration was being turned over. There are going to be some new things that are going to be put in place, things that are going to happen. So everybody just bear with it. We have to follow the guidelines. We have to follow the law. And that's his part of leadership. He's supposed to make sure he inform his community of the body of government, wherever he's at in his leadership, to make sure that these things will be put in place. You don't wait until, people are out here, agitators coming and doing things. You had this problem before when the George Floyd BLM thing took place in Minnesota. People got crazy, tore up the place, burned down a police department. All of these crimes against the state that was committed where you live and that you're supposed to govern. And your leadership under everything else for the American people. This is supposed to be a working class, the working class or the working poor, whatever communities, and some even the poverty. And then on top of that, you are a sanctuary. Okay, you are a sanctuary. You don't want to put the police out on the streets like that. You don't want to put federal agents out on the street like that. Are you crazy? I would have just to think about other than just to keep things safe. For safety guidelines, whether you like the president of the United States or whatever. This is the law. This is what the United States stand for. We stand on in law and we have to enforce the law. Due to the fact that the last administration left open an open border and millions of people from all places of the world that we don't even know we don't even know where they came from came across those borders. We don't even know who these people are. We know nothing about them, but we know that in some other countries that there is some leaders over there that know that some of these people are dangerous and they missing out of their country, and they flew out of their country, these dangerous criminals, and people are looking for them even in their own country for some crimes they committed that were dangerous. And this is not only just for America, but it's in every part of the world in immigration. This is no matter where you live, you're not going to live without laws, without having to live by the laws that are put in place for their citizens. Not to harm you, but sometimes to protect you. Now, this thing is going around that the KKK is now in the ICE, working undercover as ICE, whatever, whatever. Oh, that's not something we gonna say it's not possible. It is possible. We just got to be transparent, And then on top of that, you have to be careful how you try to address that. That issue. If there is anybody in that department of work in ICE that are doing things that are using this as a way to hide behind some kind of mask as a terrorist, you know, that needs to be questioned. That should be questioned. No doubt. No doubt. Because nobody's safe when it's like not being challenged. You know? Nobody's safe. Nobody's saying not to do that. But there's a way you can get that part of the law to be, you know, as far as like, hey, we need to do it this way. If you're going to come and do arrests, please identify who you are. Have a body cam on while you're doing the arrest so we can know that the public is informed about this. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't just come and snatch people up and nobody know what happened and nobody sees anything and now we just going to take your word that it was a legit operation. You know what I'm saying? Like, people, you don't want the tension from the people, but do put some laws in place for that. I agree with that part of, taking people into custody or detaining them or whatever. Please, that should be something that should be challenged and it should be questioned, even though we know that these people that they're looking for can be dangerous, even if they identify themselves. But it's better if you rather do it in a clean, honest way than to do it masking yourself, because it will bring more harm to innocent lives doing it in that sense. Somebody got to see the light. It is what it is. Okay, so anyway, I also wanted to talk about some other things that I had. I wanted to discuss about some stuff that I have been having a conversation about on my community wall. And I like to go over the things that I talk about so that you know that I am the person who is the original author. So I went over the movie. Read it for yourself. Celebrating. We are in the month of January, but we start off with the civil rights, and then we go all the way into February into celebrating our Black History Month. Okay, so we not gonna. This is what we supposed to be doing. Okay, as people, we do Kwanzaa during Christmas holidays. We do all of those principles, that 7 principles of what we are supposed to create to do throughout the year of celebration of Kwanzaa. Things that we have committed ourselves to do as people on that Christmas, as the year was ending in the new year. What new things that God are gonna give to us and pour out to us for the next year and the next years to come. And I just wanted to just share that, especially to Black America, because we got groups out there that's now organizing themselves and being very disrespectful to the grassroots of the history of the Black American culture. Okay, and what that civil rights fight was about when the party and the organization was formed under Huey Newton and his followers and other people from the Black Panther Party and what they stood for. A lot of people have a very misunderstanding and a miseducation about the Black Panthers. Okay, you got to be careful on what people are out there modeling about the life of these freedom fighters and these people that died for the community of people they laid their life down for the injustice that they fought for, the things that they did contribute to Black America. And we're not going to go around and allow people to disgrace that or to make that look into some new rewrite history for us or some new Black Panther. No. The original Black Panther Party children that were coming up, I'm a child from that generation, Generation X. Generation X, we are the elders from that generation. Okay, we are the elders. We know the story. We know this true story, and we're going to continue to tell the true story. And we're not going to bury the truth and make it become a lie. And we're not going to allow people to come in here and try to infiltrate or do some type of, some imitation of some Black Panther Party. We're going to uphold the truth, and that's what the Generation X children are going to do, because that's where we get the Generation X name from. We were in the making when all of that civil rights stuff was going on. We were still in our mother's room. God was building us up for this moment. We not their biological children, but we are their spiritual children. Those of us who still understand and knew and were educated, and our families taught us the importance of that education at the time. Our education, who walking out of school to protest. Who would that? Black parents in my days didn't allow that. You take your black so-and-so to school. Okay? Walking out having black salad. My mother didn't allow that. Get your education. Do not deny your education. You know who died and fought for this? For you to have this opportunity? Take your black ass to school. Okay? That's how it was in my household. Ain't no school had to teach me anything about what was going on in social ills of America. Those things were taught in my house and in my church. Not by the world, but shaped for me to understand what is good, what is evil. It was taught at home. My parents had full control of their household. Not like today where people just go with anything the educations push on their children without questioning things, without challenging things, without fighting for things. And your leaders, your church leaders are fighting for you, and you just got to be careful what kind of church leaders are fighting for you. You, as a parent, should be having to question the things that they are pushing on your children. Because if you don't care, ain't nobody else going to care. And it's just the way it is, and that's how real it is. Your church leaders can help in some way, but you also got to also help in your own way, even question some of them. Okay? These are your children. So anyway, like I was saying, as I am talking about freedom fighters, about the Black Panthers, about what happened with Dr. Martin Luther King, which is a very disgusting for me, for these black conservatives that are making, documents in history and trying to rewrite his story. And I think it's a totally disrespect to the black community and to the black children like myself who grew up. Actually, this man was my hero. I enjoyed listening to every one of his speeches. Well, I ain't saying every one of his speeches, but I enjoyed quite a few numbers of his speeches. How about that? And about the places he spoke at and the things that he's done and he has gone through and everything else. For you to come and try to rewrite that history 60 years later, and what makes it even worse is that you are sitting on a platform with he did not lay his life down to lead in a fight of civil rights, whichever way you think it went. You have the opportunity to be able to sit there and speak all of this mess. Even though they had some of y'all anyway that were working against him anyway back then, but just for you to to come out and try to destroy his legacy and what he contributed to the American people and to America and to black America especially. What a disgrace you are. And nobody should even be sitting around listening to that garbage. Some white man came and told them that this is what Dr. Martin, and they gonna fall for it. On a white man's research, a white man telling you this stuff has gone and has happened, and he's putting this documentary out there, and you going right along with it. God got something for people like you that do stuff like this to your own people. Where you going? Where you going? For trying to rewrite history for something that God has meant for us to keep. Shame on you. Shame on you. And y'all don't be fooled by the crown. I mean, by the throne. Because there's a whole lot of wisdom hiding in there. There's a whole lot of wisdom in there. Whole lot. Look at that wisdom. Okay? 60 years old. Ain't nobody gonna tell me anything differently. Sitting on a platform, a conservative platform, on your channel, on your YouTube platform, or your YouTube channel, or whatever other channels you got out there, and promoting this garbage, and even making documentaries about it. I'm not gonna call no names because they know who they are. I already told them before. I'm not going to try to get all of that stuff praying. But as you go along on these streets and you go to these platforms and you listen to conversations, these are the people I'm talking about. You going to find out who they are. What a disgrace. Because some white men claimed that Martin Luther King was a Marxist and a communist, and he was a womanizer, and he did this and he did that. But and even some of the other ones who probably plotted along with his assassination lived to stay alive and tell this lie of his story. See, Martin Luther King already gave you his story before he went into his grave. When he did his speech, I already been to the mountaintop. Maybe you need to go back and listen to those sound bites or whatever. Or maybe you need to go listen to his speech also about the drum roll. Or maybe you should be listening to his speech about some of the things he said. Don't even sit around and remember me for all of these prizes that I won and all of this other stuff, this Nobel Prize and me being a freedom fighter. He says, just know that I was out to do the will of God. They even trying to change the fact that he was a servant for the Lord and call him an atheist. And some black conservative platforms are sitting around promoting this garbage, pushing this propaganda. May God have mercy on your soul. Because what I want to say as a Christian, I can't do that because I'm breaking the spirit here when I do that. With loud cussing, getting angry, screaming. I'm not going to, because I'm very confident in my God about what he meant, what he's going to do to people that do things the way you doing things right now, committing this false witness, these false lies and everything. You should allow that to stay where it at and let it rest. You need to lead about when Saul went back to, when he went to the prophet that was dead We're gonna remember this prophet name. I need my glasses. I believe that was Prophet Elijah. Let's go back and find this prophet that he did something that he was not supposed to do. And he went to the dead. He went to the witch doctor. The witch doctor. This is what Saul did with his insecurities and he was just losing his mind, because see, God gave him a command, okay, where he was supposed to have not been friends with the enemies. When God gave him the command to kill every last one of them, do not leave these people alive. Do not even make friends with their leader. And Saul disobeyed. And when Saul disobeyed God's order that was given to him, instead he tried to, do a business deal with them and do something, like under the table deal, like, yeah, I got you. So what we gonna do? Like, blah 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 blah. But that was like God said, these people must die. And do God kill them? Because they were evil. They were evil. Let me go find it in the Bible. They were evil. Okay? And when God give you a command to do something and you disobey God and you go make friends with Satan, Satan don't care about nobody. And then guess what? He Saul ended up falling on his own sword. Okay? I told you the word of God is your chief and your commander in any battle. And if you don't follow Christ, you fighting a war you cannot win. If you ain't got Christ in the front line of your battles or in the front line of your fights, you fight the war you cannot win. Okay, like I said, when you fighting these wars out here, okay, so you will find that story in the book of Samuel's, and you could go to chapter 16. And when Saul took, Samuel, he anointed David. Okay, David was a little young boy out in the shepherd. He was a shepherd in the field doing the dirty work. Oh my God, the shepherds, boy, that was the most. If today's shepherd work will be somebody working right now on a farm, like doing farm work in, um, that time of the, you would call them migrant workers or something like that. The dirty, hard field work, or the slave that's in the field, the slave that's in the field that's doing the master's work of picking cotton or whatever. You could call that a shepherd. Okay, that's a shepherd. But anyway, Jesse had 7 sons, and his youngest son, which is David, was the one who worked out in the field as a shepherd. But David had skills. Okay, David had skills, and while David was out there in that field, David was always in the presence of God. He was always there having a conversation with God, singing his songs, using whatever kind of musical instrument at the time he played to write his songs and things he kept on his heart to while he watched the sheeps. And so anyway, Saul, who was king at the time or whatever, was having this fight with these Palestinians or whatever, and they were really big, big, big people, and they were mighty people, and they would have they were very, most of the Palestinians or whatever they were very tall, very, very big, and, they were not the average size kind of people. They were giants. So anyway, David had. I'm gonna just tell it to the story so you can relate to what I'm saying, and instead of going all the dive with that Bible stuff, just so I can get to where I'm going with this story from the Bible with David. Anyway, so Saul and everything disobeyed God. So Jesse had 7 sons. So Samuel had to anoint a new king to lead Israel, to lead God's people to Israel. So what happens is that he has to go down to, and of course he anoints David. So when he anoints David as king or whatever, the people started praising David after his fight with Goliath and how David has won that battle of killing Goliath, the giant Goliath, whatever. So his name became very popular. He became a very, war hero and all that. And with that comes, with that reputation comes power, it comes women, it comes another man being insecure, you ready to knock over his kingdom, and da 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 da, his insecurities or whatever. So Saul got a little David. He accepted David as David was a soldier of his little, because David wasn't really a soldier, but David volunteered himself to fight Goliath. Point blank, period. He was still very young. He wasn't that young. He was probably maybe 17. That was age. That was old enough. So I don't know. They don't really tell his age, but I'm trying to say I would guess 17, maybe about that age when he went to war with Goliath. Okay. So of course, as he's growing up, and of course his friend is Jonathan, which is of course his friend, and Saul's son. So of course Jonathan is his boy, and what happens is that David, whatever, get messed up with the sister of Saul's daughter or somehow or the other. He marries her, but of course she's good because she's letting him know. This is how brilliant David was. He made sure he made some allegiance by marrying the daughter. I forgot his daughter's name. What's her name? Her name, it sounded like a. Oh, what was her name again? Somebody told me her name. Her name is very brief in the Bible, but what's his name, daughter. Becomes Saul's daughter. Saul's daughter, that David. I think that's his first wife. That was somebody of course, he had to keep his friends close, but his enemies even closer. So he marries. That's his allegiance. That's his alliance. That's what he do. So then after that and everything, after he knows Saul is coming for his life, David is on this like hideout and moving around because God said, touch not my anointed, do his prophet no harm. So David has to honor God, okay? Not to do anything to harm Saul, even though he was in every place in position to destroy Saul, but he wouldn't do it because of the even though it had him going insane, that he was hiding away, he was fighting it real hard not to do this man any harm. And sometimes that is why God named David a man of his own heart. Because what made God give David that honor on his name, even though David did all that wicked stuff, but God did punish David. David didn't go without consequences for the wickedness that he's done to, you know, another man that worked under his military. Somebody that really, really, truly was somebody faithful and good to David. He put this man in the front line of a battle to die so he could sleep with the man's wife. Well, anyway, he not to sleep with the man's wife. He was already sleeping with the man's wife, but to cover up his guilt and his and the way he wanted to do things, like, oh, if he dies in this battle, then that gives me a reason that I could creep in and marry her. We have these babies, and nobody will know the secret, But see, what's his name Nathan calls his secret out and said, look, man, you wrong. You put that man in that battle so you could have his wife. Come on, let's be real. Come on, come clean with your heart. You know doggone well. And whatever his name was, it can't come off the tip of my tongue right now, was your boy. He was really faithful to you, man. You got to come right with that, whatever. So David had to go to God, and he had to cry out to the Lord, and God with David's behind. So David know that the war was going to come in his own household. The sword wasn't going to leave his house, which David's daughter, of course, Tamara, and the brother Amon and Absalom end up having some beef because one brother ended up molesting the sister. doing something horrible to the sister. So the brother was like, look, I'm after his life. My dad didn't move on that. He didn't do nothing about it. So I'm coming for his ass. Because they didn't have the same mother. They only had the same father, which is David. So David did, he was an absent father. He ignored it because David was all busy out there doing the shit he was doing. With not all the time it was about a woman thing. He had battles to fight. He was the man, like you could say. He was the king. You know what I'm saying? So he had a lot of responsibilities over his head, but his children and everything, they was just at each other. They was just at each other. You know how the story go, because God already said, look, with that wicked shit you did with that man, having him go out there in that war and fight and die, you knew that was a hot battle. You knew that war you couldn't fight that battle. So you put that man out there so he can die in the front line of your battle. Okay, the setup. Anyway, but I'm just saying, as I'm telling this story about how people think they could get away doing something, and eventually it will come at you. Follow orders, be obedient to the word of God, and everything will work out in your favor. That's all I'm saying. At least try. Even if they wrong, you do the right thing. And that's why I wrote about do the right thing. That's why I showed that slightly joint, do the right thing. Because in that movie, from what I saw it in the 90s, it was different. It touched me different now in the 2026. When I went over the nostalgia of that movie, I said, wait a minute. Back in the days, I would have thought, yeah, the motherfuckers, they did the right thing. No, but then when you get older, you think a little different. You're like, wait a minute. This all shouldn't have even happened like this. Because Bug Out, Bug Out was bugged the freak out. Hi, how are you? Those in the chat, how are you? Hit the like button. Thank you for being here. But Bug Out was with the name Bug Out. He's sitting around the neighborhood. He ain't doing nothing. Ain't got no job. All he doing is running around, running off with his big mouth, starting all this trouble, being an agitator. And then what he does, he go get this poor guy, Radio Raheem, minding his own business, enjoying his listening to some public enemy, getting that stuff all riled up in his head, goes into, then the next thing you know, he find he have a problem with the Koreans or the Koreans across the street, because they wasn't giving him the right size batteries because of the way he came into their business. Okay, in their business, they didn't come with a friendly attitude. You came with an attitude. You came in there just like very, being rude and disrespectful, I would say. And then you expect somebody to service you with kindness or whatever, even though they were doing their best to try to service you in their best way they can, in their poor little cultural way, trying to understand your language and the way your approach is. So then all of a sudden he comes out, and that's Bug Out. He started with those elders that was sitting out there that was like, no, we ain't doing that shit. Okay. And then he said, and then one guy, he's Jamaican, and he getting mad, and they had to check his ass like, you come from the West Indies and you bad, motherfucker. Don't even come over here with all that. You ain't even gonna come here and hate on those people. You're not gonna do this, okay? Just jealousy, hatred, whatever. But anyway, the Bug Out dude moves on. He got to go find some more people that he can actually play in their head. He got to go find people that he can actually use for his foolishness. The empty mind is always the devil's playground. When you don't know the word of God and everything, you got to be ready. You're going to be tested at times over things. And even some things you got to be careful what you get yourself involved in. Okay? So anyway, he finds Radio Raheem on the corner. He start pumping Radio Raheem up with the madness. Now, poor Spike Lee, he got a woman in trouble, got a baby. He's trying to hustle to make sure he support her. And she's got it living in her mother's house and the baby. And he just got a whole lot of stuff, responsibilities to do. So he do his little job as a pizza delivery guy in the neighborhood. That's where he's bringing in his income. That's where he's trying to help be a man and take care of his responsibilities, take care of the mother of his child needs, not once, but her needs for the child. Let's get the child support right. It's not for the mother, it's for the child. It's not for the mother to go get her hair done, go out for a drink, or go shopping, to buy or put on some kind of layaway plan, or what she want to buy a fur coat or whatever she want to go out there, or pay her car note or whatever, is always for what's the best interest of the child. I'm an educator with early education, okay? So everything that you're going to hear in my conversations is always going to be about somewhere is going to connect with that, with children and with education or whatever. So that's who I am. Okay. And then also I did my 20 something years, of course, in my work as corporate in corporate banking. So sometimes you're going to hear my conversations in corporate banking as well mixed up in there, and that's when I come in. And then a lot of times I had a lot of battles in there. Yes, I did, but I had to follow it legally. Legally, wasn't out on the street. It wasn't out on the street, y'all. So when I want to get into my corporate talk and then my talk about economics and all of the other stuff, you're going to hear that part of me come out. But now I'm in my fight for civil rights and what civil rights really stand for. So anyway, as Bug Out goes along, because we're talking about the do the right thing, nostalgia of do the right thing. I'm just sharing with you some of my talking points and what I'm trying to say here. So do the right thing guy, the Bug Out guy goes find his boy, take him to this restaurant, this pizza restaurant that has been bringing great business around, making sure it was a place for the young people that was in that community. They had a place to come and talk and come and sit down and to have a pizza snack, or whatever kind of Italian food they want to sit down and enjoy, as far of this Italian small business that was being run in this working middle class, you would say, community in Bed-Stuy, in Brooklyn, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, in New York, because it was doing some just gentrification changes or whatever. Because it used to be basically hi, how are you? Thank you. I appreciate that. They used to be owned. It used to be a community, Bedford Stuyvesant in Brooklyn. You learn the history of Brooklyn. It was an all Jewish neighborhood at one time. Bed-Stuy was Jewish. Then, as time changed, it moved into being the Italians started moving in, and then as the Italians started moving out, then the blacks were moving in, and then as the blacks was moving out, then you hear some Latinos were coming, more like Caribbeans and all that other stuff, and as Brooklyn started to develop and the changes went places in history or whatever. And yes, Bedford Stuyvesant used to be Jewish. It used to be Jewish. You go back and do your history in New York. Who used to own Bedford Stuyvesant? Where most you would see all mostly the culture of the Jewish people and everything. They were in Bedford Stuyvesant in Brooklyn. They was in places like Bedford Stuyvesant, probably also out in I think maybe Marine Park in Brooklyn, East New York, Flatbush, areas of that nature. You were Orthodoxian? Yeah, they in Brooklyn. They used to run Brooklyn at one time, and the Italians, and then the Italians, so small. Sal was a small Italian family business in the Bedford-Stuyvesant area of Brooklyn at that time, around black people. He enjoyed the black people there. He became like somebody there. He even offered opportunities. He gave what's his name a job there, an opportunity there to work with him and his family with delivering, being the police, but the pizza delivery guy, even though it was a small job, but just somebody, that was a way of opening up and being some kind of bringing in jobs, you know? But anyway, a family business. But anyway, Bug Out gets involved because he gets mad at Saul, and then he gets mad because he don't see all no black heroes on the wall inside this business. So Saul had to school him and say, well, if you want uh faces of black heroes on the wall, then maybe you need to open your own business and you can put all the black heroes you want on the wall, which he was right. If you look back at it as you see it today, Sal, the pizza owner of that business, was 100% correct. But it got ignited when he went and found some foolish men that they ain't had nothing better to do than standing around the neighborhood doing nothing. Okay? So he was able to find, Bug Out was able to find the ones who were stupid like the guy that walked around with the with people like that, vulnerable, weak, and then he goes and find Radio Raheem, and then Radio Raheem, he's already heated up with the Koreans across the street. So then he went to Saul's and he wanted extra cheese and all this other nonsense going on, and he was being very rude and disrespectful as a customer, an irate customer, whatever. So him and Bug Out get together, and then that evening, Saul was nice. He was ready to close his business, but then he was nice enough to say, "Okay, I'll let y'all come in and have a slice. That's it. Then we done." This is something nice he wanted to do. What do Bug Out and what's his name do? Come in his business, blasting their music, being disorderly, lawlessly, and everything else. Get everybody else all riled up because Sal gets upset. Tell him to turn down the music. He disobeyed the orders, and guess what? He gets his radio bashed in for being so destructive and so disobedient and being disturbing. Whatever he was doing under the law. Period. Everything he did was wrong. To come in that man's business and incite violence and chaos or whatever. Then afterwards or whatever like that, everybody gets mad. So everything gets out of control and everybody starts fighting. Fighting. Not recognizing that he was wrong and somebody could have came in and said, "Look, Bug Out, don't come in his business and doing this." Nah, man. Somebody could have been the better person to come in and actually de-escalated everything. But they didn't. And guess what? Nobody won. This man business was burned down, but he got insurance on his business, so he can always retire or let his sons get whatever he can to share between the two sons he had, and they can go their own way and do their own thing. Okay, but what's his name now? Got to go out there and he has to find another place to work, and all he was get for his servants' pay and everything else from the Saul insurance burned. Well, he have insurance, and I'm sure he has some documents in his house that he can, show of his loss and everything of his business and everything else like that with his insurance. What's on his policy, his loss. So what's his name? Saul. He's okay. He gonna be okay. But what about what happens to Spike Lee, his employee? How he's going to be able to overcome and how he's going to be able to go out and find work to take care of his family after that little bit of servants $500 run out. You know, and the Radio Raheem is dead for being foolish and stupid instead of saying, "You know what, man, nah, let me get my radio and let me go on out of here. I'm out of here. I don't want no trouble." Or somebody could have came and de-escalated and even told Radio Raheem he was wrong. And he ended up dead. And of course, the police had to do it the way they're going to do it because they're going to cover it up because they're going to back the blue. So that nostalgia of that movie was a masterpiece of Spike Lee. There's so much you could put on cinema, but some things you have to leave some things there for people to figure it out for themselves. Of what really caused Radio Raheem's death. Same way we look at things like the George Floyds and things that we see today. The people miss the message. And that what brings racism in it. All the other things that overshadow what was really, really the truth. What was really the truth? That Radio Raheem had to go to his grave in that riot in Bedford-Stuyvesant at that pizza shop. Racism was ignited by who? Was it the Italian man that ran his small family business in the community? Or was it the fault of the people like Bug Out, who was the instigator, the agitator, and he lived. He lived. And Radio Raheem is dead. It wasn't even his battle. He didn't have any spiritual discernment. You know? The truth is the truth. And that's a lot of things that we, as black Americans, foundational black Americans, I am a foundational black American. I'm like a chameleon, you can say. I can change whatever spirit God, whichever way God can change me. Okay. You don't have to agree. I don't know about that. You don't have to agree. But there's just some things that have boundaries. And then there's some things that you just don't go and do without really checking your heart. And like we say in the Word of God, it says, help us from any actions that are evil by our deeds, our words, and our actions. That's why we pray to be careful of how we going to make a decision. Are we going to go left or are we going to go right? And a lot of times people just ain't going to understand that, especially when you wasn't taught that from a child. When nobody ever gave you any kind of instructions and nobody ever disciplined you, or they never gave you the rod. That God disciplined those he loved, not those you know, we discipline those we love, even in correcting them in the word of God. Even though it sometimes might hurt them, but we only make sure you doing it from a clean place in your heart, out of love. Because a lot of times we don't really get people that sincerely care about us that are leading us in this world. And it has nothing to do with your skin color. You have to see past that. And God has to give you God got to get you there. But if you don't read the word of God and you don't really have a relationship with Christ or whatever, then you just going to go on with the world going to tell you to do and put you in fire. Okay? But if you follow his will and his way, you'll be all right and you'll be safe. And that's what I try to tell people. It's sometimes it's not the easiest way. It's a hard, narrow path, but it's the right way. It's the safest way than going on a broad path of destruction and being able to allow anybody else to come and capture your mind and lead your soul to hell. Those are the things you got to be able to discern. What is good and what is evil. Sometimes it's a wrestle, especially when it's done to your loved ones. I truly can understand. It could be a wrestle with God. We all go through sometimes those moments, but we have to have restraint. We have to have restraint. And especially like times like today. So much is going on. No matter if you're black or white, you have to have restraint. That's right, because Renee Good is an example of that. She thought because of her white privilege and that she was a white woman, and she also thought because she was a woman, when she could play either way, which way she gonna get her way, she came to the, you know what I'm saying, the reality when it was too late. Boundaries. You don't know what that police officer been through. You don't know what he might be going through, why he had to come back out there and be on the force in a dangerous, hostile, crazy environment. And you out here dealing with some, I'm talking about, we are not playing type of criminals. That we're going to sit back as citizens and trust and believe that this woman was innocent. Who wants that for their child in society with people that think like that? That's scary. That is really scary that you want to make a lie into the truth. That woman was someplace where she wasn't supposed to be in the first place. And she was warned. Warned. She was warned. But then they're going to sit up here and try to tell this lie on the media. On the media, on mostly these main platform medias, these main networks media, to tell the public some lie like that. And to make it convince public like that opinion or public opinion, so they could build their case and they fight to make people really think this. If this goes to the federal court, like I said, like it goes to the Department of Justice and to the Supreme Court, oh, they're gonna be fried. And now they trying to push for that governors should be able to run their own state the way they want to run it. No, because rules got to be put in place that everybody get a clear understanding of how things are supposed to be done in the United States of America. We are the United States of America. We are not the divided state. Whether who's president, whether he's in the blue or whether he's in the red, we got to follow the law. And we got to follow the Constitution of the law. Everything under the jurisdiction. You ain't here to let nothing go by because of how it went by so long to get to this point. And that's why the elephant is not going to get off the donkey's neck. Okay? The elephant is not going to give up on the donkey. That's why the elephant is running the house. Because they allowed too much to go on for too long while they were sitting there. And thought that this was going to be forever. And now God has moved that wicked government out of the way and brought in President Trump and his administration and all the whatever they come with. Okay? As long as it's under the Constitution and it's for America. But sometimes they're going to have to raise the standard. Raise the standard. Just to enforce the law. Just to get things at least some balance. Because things is just out of control. So everywhere. Especially with that state, Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul's, these ignorant, stupid, foolish leaders that live out there. It was a blue state. It was a blue state forever. And they could have continued to remain a blue state if they only complied. Just by listening to taking the law and considering it and following it, and also making sure that your people that live in those districts and in that state and in those communities were safe. And y'all could have had safe operations and not going at people's houses and terrorizing the community. And you got Free, whatever his name is, the mayor, and also the dumb governor who was almost our vice president. Could you believe that? Woo! If I give you little and you can't even handle, how can I give you much? You couldn't even be responsible for the little that I have given you. How are you going to be able to handle much? The whole United States of America. How can you handle that responsibility without being foolish, without putting a lot of lives in danger, without even allowing America to just be thrown over? Woo! We missed a good one. We missed it, boy. forever mine. But I'm not going to stay any much longer. I just wanted to just bring those things to your most invited attention, provided attention. The attention that you're giving me here, I want to bring that to your attention and to your awareness. Everything that I had discussed here in this video. If you go to the Casey McDaniel That Speaks channel on my community wall, you will see a lot of things that I did post and discussed about our world politics and things going on in the United States of America under leadership, also about civil rights and about why I celebrate and why I will fight to keep Dr. Martin Luther King dream alive and not bury it. Okay? And or turn it into a nightmare. And then we could talk about safety, safety and protection in our communities without violence. We don't have to come to violence. We don't have to come to no more bloodshed. We don't have to do any of that stuff, but I'm not a man, and I don't know how men are. Men, when they want to have wars and stuff, you just can't. Even my husband pumped up, ooh, war, 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 war. They like that war stuff. That stuff get them excited. I don't know what it is. We not men. That's why men that are having problems with their sexuality can't be in the military. And that's why women having problems with their sexuality. I don't know, but women is a different thing with women. They don't go too hard with women with that for some reason. And I think I know why. Because they being led by some foolish man anyway. Some man broke their heart. Some man broke their heart. I never forget when I used to live, like I said, in New York City, where I'm originally from, New York. I was on the subway one time, and these girls, they sat on the train. They was attractive women. They were out together on the train, and they were attractive women. Just sitting, riding the train together, going somewhere, probably friendship. Nothing they were involved in, no romantic relationship. Just friends, like you got your girlfriends. And girls, we different about our girlfriends. We different when it comes to hanging with our girls, right? Men are different when they hanging with their boys. They loud, they rough, they hard, they talk all this ugly stuff and mean manly stuff, right? And anyway, while we on the train, the guy is a guy sitting. He's admiring these ladies. So he says to one of the ladies like this. He says, "Hi, you beautiful." He says, "You're beautiful." He says, "Can I?" He says, "I would like to, get your number. Is that all right?" And the lady said, "No, no." She turns to her girlfriend. They start silly laughing. They're young women. So they start silly laughing. They said, "No, we lesbians. We lesbians." He could tell they ain't lesbians, though. But he said, "That's all right. You both beautiful ladies. I wouldn't mind being with the both of you. Y'all know y'all both might. What y'all do about the other part? That's what he..." Oh. Oh my God, the whole train just started cracking up laughing. He says, "You know how we men are, right?" And of course, the women were black American women, and he was a black male. And he said, "Well, what y'all gonna do about the other part? I could come and help y'all out." You two beautiful, attractive women. That's what it. See, that's the difference. Why I don't think they go so hard at the women as much as they go as hard as for the men transgendering. And then they said, then they said, and then he said, we men, we could beat it back. And what's so funny about it is that you can't beat God's way of how he made things to be. That's what I'm saying. If he made you a woman, he made you a woman for a reason. And if he made you a man, he made you a man for a reason. So you both can reproduce, be fruitful, and multiply. Life, reproduction, and that's it. And that's something natural. Natural. Okay? That chemistry that will just happen. And especially for women, because of what her body goes through and everything else, no matter how lesbian she wants to be and how rough she wants to be, she's still gonna have desires to be with a man, especially when it comes to her giving birth to children. She's gonna always have that kind of attachment in some kind of way that it's gonna be natural for her to still want to be with a man. God only go hard at men because when they totally transgender themselves, they totally disgrace God. He totally turned them over, reprobate whatsoever. A woman can still get pregnant. Even if she don't want to be with a man, she gonna be with a man because she still want to get pregnant. Now they come with all of this other, the drugs and all this to make those babies out of the lab or whatever like that. But that doesn't gonna last. That's not gonna make the child healthy or the child have a life as it grow older to connect to anything to this world that is natural. And guess what? They're going to end up falling apart and they're going to end up dying because when something don't come in here through the right way and through the natural way that God wanted it to be, it does not last. Eventually, they will go to an early grave doing something, either harming themselves because they're not going to feel no love from nothing. And they just going to just end up either hurting themselves, hurting somebody, or just getting shot, killed, whatever. That's why you see a lot of these women, people that be acting the way they do, they don't have no feelings to nothing because they wasn't born natural. You see, and that's something that you're going to have to think about on your own, figure it out for yourself. And you see what's going on in the court right now with this thing about pronouns and women. What is the definition of a woman? And these people are doctors, and they can't even give you the definition. That's scary. These are people that are actually medical science, biology, whatever it is, that can't give you the definition of a woman. That's crazy. That's scary. Y'all better get back to the word of God because boy, oh boy, this devil is having such a good time out here with souls in the world. So anyway, your girl Casey McDaniel gotta go. For those of you who are first coming to my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. I would ask that you would hit the like button. I wanted to hit the algorithm because my videos and everything ain't getting as much exposure for some reason. I'm not monetizing anyway. But, it's just that it doesn't get as much exposure as it should. And I think I bring up some pretty good things that people can talk about and have a conversation about in a forum or whatever. In American discussions, I do a lot of graphics. That's what I do. I think I get some things done more better when I'm writing it than other than when I'm here talking it. And sometimes those are my greatest strengths. My greatest strengths has always been writing. I've been a poet, not like the Renee poet type of poet, but I have been a poet. I've done some poetry in places like More Betters in Brooklyn, not Brooklyn, New York, out in Manhattan, out in New York. I did a lot of great things in my time being here in this world. I have found many things that I am gifted, talented, and I am actually excellent about. Okay? So I tell people don't go by what you see. Don't go by, oh, look at all the gray hair in here. A lot of wisdom. A lot of wisdom, y'all. But anyway, y'all, that's my crown. My crown is being covered. Okay? But anyway, y'all, my hair's a little messy because I do have to color it. I do have to color it. That's why I took it out. I picked it out in Afro then. But anyway, y'all, I just would like for y'all to subscribe. If you haven't, hit the bell for your notification when I am live. That you could come in and hear the Casey McDaniel experience, the Casey McDaniel that speaks, and have a great day with me. A great conversation going with me. You can share, like, share, subscribe to this video. And with that being said, God bless you. I love you. And be safe. Peace.